The gravel crunched beneath the tires of my 10-year-old Honda Civic as I pulled into the circular driveway of Pinecrest Lake House. 3 other vehicles were already parked in the prime spots near the entrance. My brother Daniel's gleaming black Mercedes, my parents' white Lexus SUV, and my sister-in-law Victoria's red BMW convertible. I parked at the far end, near the gardening shed, and sat for a moment looking at the property. The main house rose 3 stories against the backdrop of Mirror Lake, its floor-to-ceiling windows catching the late afternoon sun. The wraparound deck extended over the water, and I could see the private dock where a vintage wooden boat was moored. To the left, partially hidden by pine trees, sat the guest cabin, a modest one-bedroom structure that had once been the groundskeeper's quarters. I knew every inch of this property. Every creaking floorboard, every view from every window, every repair that had been made over the past 4 years. My family knew none of this. I grabbed my modest duffel bag from the back seat and walked toward the main house. The front door was already open, and I could hear voices inside. Daniel's commanding tone, Victoria's artificial laugh, my mother's approval-seeking comments. Finally, Daniel said as I stepped into the foyer. He was standing in the center of the living room like a general surveying his troops, a printed spreadsheet in his hand. "We've been waiting to do room assignments." My father was settled in the leather armchair by the fireplace, a whiskey already in his hand. My mother was arranging flowers she'd brought from home in a vase on the dining table. Victoria was taking photos of the lake view through the windows, probably for her social media. "Traffic," I said simply, setting my bag down. "You should have left earlier." Daniel didn't look up from his spreadsheet. "Okay, so here's how this is going to work. Dad and Mom, you're in the master suite on the 3rd floor. Best views, private bathroom, the works." My mother smiled. "That's thoughtful, Danny. Victoria and I will take the 2nd floor suite. It has that nice balcony overlooking the lake." Daniel made a check mark on his paper. "And Megan." He finally looked at me, and I saw the familiar expression, the one that assessed my worn jeans, my simple sweater, my lack of designer accessories, and found me wanting. "You're sleeping in the guest cabin." I kept my face neutral. "The guest cabin. It's not that bad," Victoria said, not looking up from her phone. "I mean, it's small, but you're used to small, right? Didn't you just move into a studio apartment?" "1 bedroom," I corrected quietly. "But yes, it's small." "Perfect then." Daniel set down his spreadsheet. "The cabin has everything you need. Bed, bathroom, little kitchenette. You'll be comfortable." My father took a sip of his whiskey. "It makes sense, Megan. Daniel and Victoria need the space. They might be expanding their family soon." He winked at Victoria, who giggled. "We're not announcing anything yet," she said coyly. My mother clasped her hands together. "Oh, how wonderful that would be. Our first grandchild." I stood in the foyer, holding my duffel bag, watching my family plan their lives in a house they didn't own. The house I had purchased 4 years ago. The house I had renovated, maintained, and paid taxes on, while they assumed it still belonged to our late grandmother's estate. "The cabin it is," I said. Daniel nodded, already moving on. "Now about meals. Victoria and I thought we'd do a rotating cooking schedule, but obviously you'll handle most of it, Megan. You're not working right now anyway, right?" "I work remotely." "Right, your little computer thing." He waved his hand dismissively. "Anyway, that's flexible. Real jobs aren't, so you'll do breakfasts and lunches, and we'll all pitch in for dinners. Mom and Dad are on vacation, so they're exempt." "I do make a wonderful Caesar salad," my mother offered. "That's perfect, Mom. You can contribute that way." Daniel was already moving toward the stairs. "Victoria, let's go check out our suite. I want to see if they've updated the bathroom like the listing mentioned." I watched them climb the stairs, their voices fading as they discussed renovation possibilities and future family gatherings at their lake house. My mother approached me, lowering her voice. "Don't be upset, sweetheart. You know how Daniel is. He likes to take charge. And honestly, the cabin is quite private. You might enjoy the solitude." "I'm not upset, Mom." "Good." She patted my arm. "Because we're all here to relax and be a family. No drama, okay? Your father has been stressed with work, and Daniel just made partner at the firm. Everyone needs this vacation." "Daniel made partner last month. Didn't he tell you?" She frowned slightly. "Well, you two don't talk much anymore, but yes, youngest partner in the firm's history. We're so proud." "That's great," I said. "Really?" She smiled and returned to her flowers. My father hadn't moved from his armchair, hadn't acknowledged my arrival beyond that initial comment about the cabin making sense. He was watching the financial news on the mounted television, numbers scrolling across the screen. I picked up my bag, and walked back outside, toward the guest cabin. The path was lined with solar lights that would glow softly after sunset, lights I had chosen 2 summers ago when I'd updated the landscaping. The cabin itself had been completely renovated under my direction. New insulation, modern bathroom, a kitchenette with stainless steel appliances. It was small but comfortable. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, setting my bag on the bed. Through the window, I could see the main house, its windows glowing warmly. My family was in there, settling into rooms they hadn't earned, making plans for a property they didn't own. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Webb, the property manager. Miss Hartwell, I'll be arriving at 5 p.m. as scheduled. Should I proceed with the standard owner arrival protocol? I typed back, yes, but give it about an hour after you arrive. I want them settled first. Understood. The documents are prepared as requested. I set down my phone and sat on the bed, looking out at the lake. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the pine trees and the fading blue sky. It was beautiful. It had always been beautiful. My grandmother had left this property in a complicated trust when she died 6 years ago. The family had assumed it would be sold, and the proceeds divided equally among her descendants, my father and his 2 siblings, with shares passing to the grandchildren. Lawyers got involved. Arguments happened. The property sat in legal limbo for 2 years, while everyone fought over its future. What no one knew was that during those 2 years, I had been building something. After college, I'd taken a job at a small tech startup. Nothing glamorous. I was employee number 12, handling everything from customer support to basic coding. The salary was modest, but they offered equity, significant equity. 3 years later, the company was acquired by a major tech firm. My shares were worth $4.2 million after taxes. I didn't tell anyone. I continued living simply, moved into a small apartment, drove my old car. When my family asked about work, I said I was doing some consulting and figuring things out. They interpreted this as failure. I let them. When the lake house finally came up for sale to resolve the estate dispute, I made an offer through a holding company I'd established. The family accepted, relieved to be done with the legal battles. They never knew the buyer was me. For 4 years I've owned Pinecrest Lake House. I've paid for every repair, every upgrade, every property tax bill, and every summer, I've watched my family rent it through a vacation property service, paying me through several layers of business entities, while they complained about the rental rates and reminisced about how it should have stayed in the family. This year, Daniel had decided to book it for a full week. He'd made a big show of treating the family to the vacation, though I knew from the booking records that my parents had actually paid for half. None of them had any idea they were paying to stay in my house. A knock on the cabin door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Victoria standing on the small porch, her arms crossed. The Wi-Fi password isn't working, she said. Daniel's trying to get some work done, and he can't connect. Did you try the one on the card in the kitchen? Obviously, it's not working. She looked past me into the cabin, her nose wrinkling slightly. This place is smaller than I thought. How do you live like this? It's cozy, if you say so. She thrust her phone toward me. Can you just fix the Wi-Fi? You're the tech person, right? I took her phone, checked the password she'd entered, and corrected a single digit. It's a 0, not the letter O. She snatched the phone back without thanks, and walked away, her designer sandals crunching on the gravel path. I closed the cabin door, and checked the time. Marcus would arrive in about an hour. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and prepared myself for what was coming. At 5:15 p.m., I walked back to the main house. The family had gathered on the deck, drinking wine and admiring the view. Daniel was holding court, describing his plans for the week: boat trips, hiking excursions, a fancy dinner in town. We should invite the Hendersons, my mother suggested. They have that place across the lake. It would be nice to reconnect. Already done, Daniel said. They're coming for dinner on Thursday. I told them we'd host. Wonderful. My father raised his glass. To family vacations, to family, everyone echoed. I stood at the edge of the group, holding a glass of water. No one had offered me wine. The sound of tires on gravel drew everyone's attention. A silver pickup truck with Pinecrest Property Management printed on the door pulled into the driveway. Who's that? Daniel asked, frowning. Probably just maintenance, Victoria said. These rental places always have people coming and going. A man in his 50s stepped out of the truck, carrying a leather folder and a set of keys. Marcus Webb had managed this property for me since the purchase. He was professional, discreet, and completely loyal. He also had a flair for the dramatic, which I appreciated. "Good evening," Marcus said, approaching the deck. He was carrying fresh linens over one arm, a small touch we'd planned. "I'm looking for Miss Hartwell." Daniel stepped forward, assuming the role of host. "I'm Daniel Hartwell. Is there a problem with the property?" Marcus looked at him with polite confusion. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm looking for Miss Megan Hartwell." The deck went silent. My family turned to look at me. "That's me," I said, stepping forward. Marcus's demeanor shifted immediately. The polite confusion became warm professionalism. "Miss Hartwell, wonderful to see you again. I've prepared your master suite as requested." He handed me the keys, the original keys, not the rental copies. "Shall I inform your guests of the house rules?" Daniel let out a sharp laugh. "Okay, what is this? Some kind of joke?" "I don't understand," my mother said slowly. "There's been a mistake," my father added, standing from his chair. "We rented this property for the week, through the vacation service." Marcus turned to me, eyebrows raised, waiting for direction. I took a breath. "There's no mistake. Marcus is the property manager here. He works for me." "Works for you?" Victoria's voice was incredulous. "You don't even have a real job." "I have a job. I also have this house." I held up the keys. "I've owned Pinecrest Lake House for 4 years." The silence that followed was profound. I watched the information travel across their faces. Confusion, denial, the slow dawning of something they didn't want to believe. Daniel recovered first. "That's impossible. The property was sold to some investment company when Grandma's estate was settled. Henderson Holdings or something." "Hartwell Holdings," I corrected. "My company." "Your company," my father repeated flatly. "When the estate lawyers were looking for a buyer, I made an offer, a good one. The family accepted." I kept my voice calm. "No one asked who was behind the holding company. No one thought to check." My mother had gone pale. "Megan, this isn't funny." "It's not a joke, Mom." "Marcus, could you show them the documentation?" Marcus opened his leather folder and produced a stack of papers. Property deed, dated 4 years ago. Title transfer documentation. Property tax records showing Miss Hartwell as the owner of record. He spread them on the outdoor table. "It's all quite straightforward." Daniel grabbed the deed, scanning it rapidly. I watched his expression change as he recognized the legal signatures, the official stamps, the undeniable authenticity. "This can't be right," he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "It's right." I walked to the deck railing, looking out at the lake. "I bought this house with money I earned. I've maintained it, improved it, paid for everything. And yes, for the past 4 years, I've watched you all rent it back from me without ever knowing. You've been taking our money." Victoria's voice was shrill. "You've been paying market rate for a vacation rental. I've been using that income for property maintenance and local taxes." I turned to face them. "I never took a penny for myself. It all went back into the house." My father set down his whiskey glass. "Why? Why would you do this and not tell us?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me." The words came out simply, without bitterness. "When I tried to tell you about my work, about the opportunities I was building, you dismissed it. Little computer thing, figuring things out, not a real job. You decided who I was years ago, and nothing I said could change that." "That's not fair," my mother protested. "We've always supported you." "Have you?" I gestured around the deck. 20 minutes ago, Daniel assigned me to the guest cabin. Victoria asked me to fix the Wi-Fi, because I'm the tech person. Dad said the cabin makes sense because I'm used to living small. None of you offered me wine. None of you asked about my life, my work, anything real. I paused. This is how it's been for years. I just stopped fighting it. Daniel threw the deed onto the table. "So what is this? Revenge? You let us book this place just to humiliate us." "No, I let you book it because you're my family, and I thought maybe things could be different." I picked up the deed, folded it carefully, but then I arrived, and within 5 minutes, I was assigned to the servants' quarters, and told to handle the cooking because I wasn't really working anyway. "So yes, I decided you should know the truth." Marcus cleared his throat. "Miss Hartwell, shall I proceed with the arrangements we discussed?" "Yes, thank you, Marcus." He nodded and headed inside the main house. I heard him speaking to someone on his phone, making calls. "What arrangements?" my father demanded. "Well, that depends on what happens next." I sat down in one of the deck chairs. The expensive teak furniture I'd selected 2 years ago. You've paid for a week's rental. That reservation is still valid. You're welcome to stay. How generous, Daniel said sarcastically. But, I continued, there are going to be some changes to the room assignments. I'll be staying in the master suite. It is my house, after all. You and Victoria can have the second floor guest room, singular, not the suite. Mom and Dad can have the first floor bedroom. And if we don't agree to this, Daniel stepped forward aggressively. What are you going to do, kick out your own family? If necessary, yes. I met his gaze steadily. Marcus has already contacted the local sheriff's department. They're aware of the ownership situation and prepared to assist with any trespassing issues. I'm hoping it won't come to that. Victoria grabbed Daniel's arm. Danny, let's just go. We don't need this. We can find another rental. It's the 4th of July week, Daniel snapped. Everything within 100 miles is booked. Then I suggest you accept the new room assignments, I said. Or there's always the guest cabin. It's quite comfortable. I should know. I designed the renovation myself. My mother stood abruptly, tears in her eyes. I can't believe you would do this to us, to your family, after everything we've done for you. What have you done for me, Mom? The question was genuine, not hostile. I'm honestly asking, what have you done for me in the last 5 years? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. You paid for college, I acknowledged. I'm grateful for that. But since then, you've criticized my choices, dismissed my work, compared me unfavorably to Daniel at every opportunity. When I started my own business, you told me to be realistic. When it succeeded, you didn't notice because you never asked. You never told us, my father interjected. I tried, multiple times. You weren't interested. I stood up, suddenly tired. But that's not what tonight is about. Tonight is about the fact that you walked into my home and treated me like a second-class citizen. Again, and I'm done accepting it. Marcus returned to the deck. Miss Hartwell, the master suite is prepared. I've also taken the liberty of moving Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Hartwell's luggage to the second floor guest room, and your parents' belongings to the first floor bedroom. He paused. The guest cabin remains available, should anyone prefer more privacy. Daniel's face was red with suppressed rage. This is insane. You're insane. You buy the family house in secret, spy on us for years, and now you're playing some kind of power game. I'm not playing anything, Daniel. I walked toward the door to the main house. My house. I'm simply establishing facts. This is my property. You are guests here. If you want to stay, you'll treat me with the same basic respect you'd show any host. I paused at the threshold. That's not unreasonable. That's not revenge. That's just normal. I went inside, leaving them on the deck. The master suite was exactly as I remembered it. Vaulted ceilings, windows overlooking the lake, a king-sized bed, with crisp white linens. Marcus had placed a small vase of wildflowers on the nightstand. A thoughtful touch. I sat on the bed and waited. About an hour later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find my mother, her eyes red from crying. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I stepped aside to let her in. She looked around the room, my room, as if seeing it for the first time. Your father and Daniel are drinking on the deck, she said. Victoria went for a drive. She's upset. I imagine everyone is. My mother sat in the armchair by the window. Megan, I don't understand any of this. The company, the money, this house. When did all of this happen? How? I sat across from her and explained. The startup, the acquisition, the wealth I'd accumulated while they thought I was struggling. The decision to buy the lake house through a holding company. The years of watching them vacation here without knowing. She listened in silence, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, to something that might have been shame. Why didn't you tell us when it happened? The company sale, the money, that's wonderful news. We would have celebrated. Would you? I leaned forward. Mom, do you remember Easter 3 years ago? I tried to tell you about a project I was working on, something I was excited about. You cut me off to ask if Daniel had told me about his promotion. She was quiet. That's not an isolated incident. That's the pattern. Every conversation somehow becomes about Daniel's achievements, Daniel's life, Daniel's family. I stopped trying to compete. I stopped trying to be seen. And somewhere along the way, you all stopped seeing me entirely. That's not true. It is true. Today proved it. I kept my voice gentle. The guest cabin, Mom, the cooking assignments, the way Victoria handed me her phone like I was tech support. None of you even considered that I might have my own life, my own success, my own value. My mother's tears started flowing again. I didn't realize. I never meant to make you feel. I know, that's almost worse. I handed her a tissue from the nightstand. You didn't mean to. It was just automatic, natural, the way things were. We sat in silence for a long moment. Through the window, I could see the sun setting over the lake, painting the water in shades of gold and pink. What do you want, Megan? My mother finally asked. From us? From this week? From everything? I thought about the question. I want to have a family vacation. A real one where I'm not the servant or the afterthought, where we can spend time together as equals. I paused. I want Daniel to stop treating me like a failure. I want Dad to actually talk to me, not just at me. I want you to ask about my life, and actually listen to the answers. That's not unreasonable. No, it's not. I stood and walked to the window. I'm not trying to punish anyone, Mom. I don't want revenge, or groveling or dramatic apologies. I just want to be treated like I matter. My mother rose and came to stand beside me. You do matter. You've always mattered. Then show me. This week, show me that you see me as something other than Daniel's less successful sister. I turned to face her. That's all I'm asking. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. I'll talk to your father. And Daniel. Thank you. She hesitated at the door. Megan, the company you built, the money, this house. I am proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I should have asked. I should have paid attention. Her voice broke slightly. I'm sorry. It was the first genuine apology I'd received from her in years, maybe ever. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. After she left, I changed for dinner and went downstairs. The atmosphere had shifted, still tense, but different. My father was setting the table, something I'd never seen him do. Victoria was in the kitchen, opening wine. Daniel was nowhere to be seen. He's on the dock, my father said, noticing my glance, cooling off. Should I talk to him? Give him time. Your brother doesn't handle being wrong very well. My father placed the last fork and straightened. Never has. Dad, I owe you an apology. He said it stiffly, the way he said everything, but his eyes were sincere. I've spent 30 years building a career in finance. I thought I understood success, understood money, understood how the world works, and my daughter built a fortune right under my nose, and I didn't see it because I wasn't looking. It's okay, Dad. No, it's not. He pulled out a chair for me. Another first. You're my daughter. I should have been paying attention. I should have been asking questions, offering support, being interested in your life. Instead, he trailed off, shaking his head. I don't have a good excuse. There isn't one. I sat down, surprised by his vulnerability. We can start over. This week. That's why I wanted everyone here. You planned this? All of it. Not the guest cabin part, I admitted. That was Daniel's contribution. But yes, I wanted a chance to reset things, to be honest with everyone, about who I am, and what I've built, and to see if we could be a family again. A real one. Victoria came out with the wine. Her attitude considerably softened. I'm sorry about the Wi-Fi thing, she said quietly. And the other comments. I didn't know. You didn't need to know to be polite, I said. But I accept your apology. We ate dinner on the deck. As the stars came out, Daniel eventually joined us, silent and brooding, but present. He didn't apologize. I didn't expect him to, not yet, but he also didn't argue or attack. He listened. After dinner, Marcus stopped by with some paperwork for me to sign, routine property matters that could have waited, but I appreciated his excuse to check on the situation. Everything all right, Miss Hartwell? Getting there. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. He smiled slightly. It's been an interesting 4 years. I'm glad it's finally out in the open. He shook my father's hand before leaving. Mr. Hartwell, your daughter is one of the most impressive young business people I've ever worked with. You should be very proud. My father nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand that. The rest of the week unfolded differently than any family vacation before. Daniel remained distant for the first 2 days, taking long runs alone, making work calls from the dock. But on the third day, he found me reading on the deck, and sat down across from me. I looked you up, he said abruptly. Your company, the acquisition, and it's impressive. The valuation, the technology you developed, the exit strategy. He ran a hand through his hair. I've been working 80-hour weeks for 15 years, trying to make partner. You built something worth more than I'll make in my entire career, and I didn't even know about it. It wasn't a competition, Daniel. Everything is a competition. He laughed bitterly. That's what Dad taught us, right? That's how I've lived my whole life. And then my little sister just quietly succeeds at a level I can't even comprehend, and doesn't feel the need to rub anyone's face in it. What would be the point? He shook his head. I don't know. I would have rubbed everyone's face in it. I would have made sure everyone knew, every day, how successful I was. I know. That's why I didn't tell you. I set down my book. I didn't want success to become another arena for us to compete in. I didn't want it to change how you saw me, or how I saw myself. So you just let us treat you like a failure. You were going to treat me that way, regardless, at least this way. I didn't have to deal with jealousy and resentment on top of it. I paused. And honestly, part of me wanted to see what would happen. Whether anyone would actually notice that I was doing well. Whether anyone would ask. We didn't, he said quietly. No, you didn't. He was silent for a long moment. I'm sorry about the guest cabin. It was petty. I was trying to, I don't know, establish hierarchy or something. Or something. I've been doing that our whole lives, haven't I? Putting you down to feel better about myself. He looked out at the lake. Victoria said I have issues. She's probably right. Probably. He almost smiled at that. Fair enough. We sat together for a while, not talking, watching the water. It wasn't reconciliation. Not fully. Not yet. But it was a start. On the last day of the vacation, I gathered everyone on the deck for a conversation I'd been planning for months. I want to make some changes to how this property is handled, I said. Marcus has agreed to stay on as property manager, but I want to adjust the rental arrangement. Meaning, my father asked. Meaning the family can use Pinecrest Lake House anytime it's available, at no charge. It should be a family home, not just a rental property. I pulled out a folder. I've also established a trust. The property will eventually pass to all the Hartwell descendants equally. You, Daniel, any children either of us have. It's structured so no one can sell their share without agreement from all parties. Daniel took the documents, scanning them with his lawyer's eye. This is generous. It's fair. Grandma wanted this place to stay in the family. I'm just making sure it does. My mother was crying again. Happy tears this time. Megan, this is beautiful. After after how we treated you, you're my family. That hasn't changed. I just needed us to find a new way to be together. I smiled slightly. One where I get to sleep in the master suite. You've earned it, my father said gruffly. We spent the last evening around a bonfire by the lake. Victoria made s'mores. Daniel told stories from law school. My mother talked about her own childhood visits to this property with my grandmother. My father contributed some surprisingly funny memories of early family vacations, and they asked me questions about my work, my life, my plans. They listened to the answers. As the fire burned down, and the stars wheeled overhead, I felt something I hadn't felt with my family in years. Peace, not perfection. We weren't suddenly a flawless family unit. Years of dysfunction magically erased. Daniel still had competitive instincts. My father still defaulted to distance. My mother still favored surface harmony over genuine connection. Victoria still took too many photos for social media. But they were trying. They were seeing me, and that was enough. Marcus came by the next morning to help everyone with checkout. He caught my eye as Daniel and Victoria loaded their car. Same time next year, Miss Hartwell. I looked at my family, imperfect, frustrating, mine, and smiled. Same time next year, Marcus, and add a few extra days. I think we'll need them. My mother hugged me before she left. A real hug, long and tight. Thank you, she whispered, for giving us another chance. Thank you for taking it, I whispered back. I stood on the deck and watched them drive away, one car after another, disappearing down the gravel road. Then I turned and went back inside my house. There was still coffee in the pot. I poured a cup and settled into the leather armchair by the window. My grandmother's favorite spot, now mine. The lake stretched out before me, perfectly still in the morning light. I had built something here, not just wealth, not just property, but a chance at a different kind of family. Whether that chance would flourish or fade remained to be seen. But for the first time in years, I was hopeful, and that, I decided, was worth more than any company valuation or property deed. That was worth everything.